In the aftermath of Sarah Everard's tragic murder, the Home Secretary seized her moment today to show that she's serious about making sure it is never repeated, with the launch of an inquiry into how a serving police officer was able to carry out such a horrific crime.
The public have a right to know what systematic failures enabled his continued employment as a police officer. We need answers as to why this was allowed to happen.
This terrible crime has provoked a wider debate on whether misogynistic culture is to blame, and it's caused a split here among some senior Conservatives, with the Prime Minister this morning resisting calls to make misogyny a hate crime. This follows the party's chairman drawing criticism from some female colleagues after dismissing the concept of male privilege.
Adam, can I ask you, why do you think it's crass to talk about male privilege? In the context of everything that's happened, do you think we need to address misogyny?
Sorry, you can't come on.
The inquiry announced today will focus on failings in the Met, taking some pressure off its Commissioner, Cressida Dick, who is still facing calls today for her resignation.
I've known Cressida Dick for years, and she is an incredibly effective and successful police officer. But, you know, the Metropolitan Police knew what this monster had done when he pleaded guilty in July. And we're still here in October with the sentencing, with the Met not seeming to have a plan for how they can regain public confidence. And, you know, you've got to have that confidence in the leadership so that the policing by consent can take place and that women can feel safe on our streets.
Some here have called for a much broader inquiry into misogyny within the police, a problem one police and crime commissioner said she's seen evidence of in her own local force.
I still think there is a long way to go in policing, I have to be honest. We had a situation in my own patch in Hampshire in the Isle of Wight just last year where 6 officers using WhatsApp were involved in misogynistic, homophobic type language. These things are not uncommon within policing still, very sadly.
Back on more well-trodden Tory ground, there was also today a new crackdown on protesters after the chaos caused by Insulate Britain. The campaign has provoked strong reactions from passers-by and from the Home Secretary.
Their actions over recent weeks have amounted to some of the most self-defeating environmental protests that this country has ever seen. The freedom to protest is a fundamental right our party will forever fight to uphold. But it must be within the law.
Always popular with the party faithful, her speech was well received today at a conference that has been at times a low-energy affair. A fresh burst of enthusiasm is expected tomorrow, though, when the Prime Minister takes to the podium.
Well, earlier I spoke to the Policing Minister, Kit Malthouse, and I started by asking him if he had full confidence in the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Dame Cressida Dick, to deliver on the findings of the inquiries.
So I do. What I want from a police leader is somebody who's open and transparent and willing to embrace a problem and bring change. And I think in the last few days you've seen announcements to the Commissioner that indicates that is the case. So yes, but, you know, the British public will judge by whether change comes on some of these issues and whether the inquiry findings, both ours and indeed the internal Met inquiry, the measures that come forward are delivered.
Right, so the inquiry could lead to change at the top of the Met?
Yeah, so not change at the top of the Met, but change in the Met circumstances.
I want to ask you a blunt question, if I may. You have a daughter. Do you tell her trust the police, or do you feel unable to do that at the moment?
No, I do tell her trust the police. I do. And I know that we can, and I hope people will.
It's far from a one-off case, though. We know of other officers, other concerns, many other alleged offences committed. Do you think there is a possibility that the Met is institutionally misogynist?
Well, I don't think it is institutionally misogynist, not least because we have a growing proportion of female officers and certainly female leaders in the organisation. Right? But I think we need to make sure at all times that organisations like the Met, which are very powerful, charged with our safety and to which we give enormous trust, that they are doing everything they can to preserve their integrity.
Do spending cuts have anything to do with the delays in women getting justice that the Prime Minister has talked about?
So the delays in particularly in rape and sexual assault cases, are more complicated than that.
But do spending cuts have anything to do with it?
There is a capability and a capacity issue, not least around this new phenomenon of digital information on mobile phones.
33% cut since you took office. I mean, are you defending that to the hilt? It doesn't sound to me like you're not.
I'm not necessarily, but I think we're missing one point, which is a decade ago, the previous governments were facing a massive economic crash. We had to cut our cloth according, so we were match fit to get ourselves financially, as it happens, through a pandemic, which we were able to do.
Do you believe that the Prime Minister can be trusted to deal with women's safety?
I absolutely do, and I think he's got a very proud record, which people forget. When he was at City Hall as Mayor in 2009, he published the first ever violence against women and girls strategy in the entire country and in a major city around the world.
Some of the things he's said in the past, though, I mean, he joked, admittedly, that a Conservative government would, quote, cause your wife to have bigger breasts. And he got excited about the prospect of semi-naked women glistening like wet otters at the 2012 Olympics beach volleyball. Do you really believe that in his heart of hearts he cares about his issue when he says something like that?
I absolutely do, because I've sat in the room with him when he has been extremely fired up about some of the injustices that he perceives out there that are being promulgated against women. Now, he is a journalist and occasionally uses colourful language, as I'm sure you do as well, but he's Prime Minister and he's focused on this issue.
You don't find that language offensive yourself?
Look, Kathy, he's the Prime Minister, but he was a journalist. He used lots of colourful language in the past about things that were designed to be eye-catching. What I do know is that he's extremely focused on this issue of violence against women and girls, and that is the mission that he set me and the Home Secretary to complete.
Kit Malthouse, thanks very much.
Thanks very much.